Alright guys, so this is one another important video about debunking stress relief, right? Now, as you know that the thing is, when you feel stressed, now you probably notice that you watch porn. You don't watch porn when you feel on top of the world. You only watch porn when you feel down, right? That shows that you're always looking for a fix, right? You're always seeing these benefits in it. Now, so when you feel stress, right, you think that porn relieves your stress, so you go and watch porn whenever you feel stressed, right? So it's very important to debunk this one, stress relief, because stress relief and pleasure, these two are the uh, most important and the biggest benefit that people see in porn, okay? And if you haven't watched that pleasure video, you can go and watch that video right after this, because it's gonna change your perspective completely. And once you debunk stress relief and pleasure, you because these two are the biggest ones, you won't feel like you want to watch porn, you want to watch porn anymore, right? And also, like, if you don't perceive that porn relieves your stress, then you won't feel like you want to watch porn whenever you feel stressed, right? But if you believe that porn relieves your stress, then every single time when you will feel down, every single time when you will feel stressed, you will want to watch porn, right? You will have a strong desire to watch porn, right? So it's really important to debunk this one. So guys, let's get right into it, okay? Now let's first understand what is stress, right? So what is stress? Now you need to understand that stress is simply your thoughts, right? It's simply your thoughts. Stress is not physical, right? Like, we cannot see stress objectively. It's not something that that is, that is present inside our body, okay? Like, stress is simply in your mind. It's you thinking about those stressful thoughts. Stress is not physical, it's simply the stressful thoughts, right? So you need to understand that stress is simply in your mind, it's simply your thoughts. Now the question comes is, what actually creates those stressful thoughts? Like, why we actually create those stressful thoughts? So the thing is, when you interpret any situation, now listen very carefully, okay? So when you interpret any situation that represents harm or loss, then we feel stress. We create those stressful thoughts. Like, for example, if I like for example, if let's say that there's zero money in my bank account, right? Now if I look at my bank account and there's no money in it, then that situation represents harm or loss, right? So if I interpret that situation as harm or loss, then I'm gonna feel stress about it, right? I'm gonna create those stressful thoughts in my mind, right? It's really that simple, and you can think of countless examples like this. Stress is not physical, it's simply in your mind, it's simply your thoughts, right? So, and how we actually and why we feel stress: when we interpret any situation as harm or loss, so we feel stress about it, we create those stressful thoughts. Now many people also make argument that stress is physical, right? Like, you feel tension and whatever, but you need to understand that stress is not physical, okay? Like, your mind, like our mind influences our body, and then our body influences stress. It's really that simple, okay? So stress is not physical, it's simply in your mind. Like, for example, if I um, like if I'm pinching my skin, okay, if I'm pinching my body part, whatever, so you need to understand that that feeling, that physical sensation cannot jump into my into my mental, okay? Like, that cannot jump into my mind, okay? Like, it's a physical sensation, okay? But if I'm pinching my body part, if I'm pinching my skin, and I'm like, oh my god, man, I don't like this feeling, let me get rid of it, let me get rid of it. Do you see what's happening? So mental and physical, they both are separate, okay? Stress is your thoughts, it's in your mind, and because it's in your mind, so you can only relieve it in your own mind, right? Now now let's understand, from where did that belief even come from, okay? Like, from where did this belief come from? Why we believe that porn relieves stress, okay? Now there's another very important aspect here that we need to understand. So porn industry, right? Now, porn industries have influenced people into believing that, oh, porn is this magical tool. It's a magical, euphoric, miraculous drug that can take away all of your life problems, that can relieve your stress, that can, that can be used as a relaxation tool. Okay, so like when you go into these porn sites, the marketing, how they market, the way they market it, their videos, the way they market porn is that, oh, porn is so pleasurable, porn is a secretive and pleasurable activity to indulge in. Oh, it's a magical tool that can relieve your stress. Oh, if you are feeling lonely, if you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling bored, you can go and watch porn because it's gonna relieve your stress. It's like you will give a treat to yourself once in a while, and you will feel so much pleasure in all of those things. So porn industries, they did all of this marketing, and they fed this belief in people's mind through their marketing that, oh, porn is a secretive and pleasurable activity to indulge in, right? Oh, and porn is a tool that can relieve your negative emotion, that can relieve your stress, right? And because you started believing that, you accepted that message unconsciously. And remember what I told you in the last video as well, that what you believe, you're gonna start to feel, right? So our beliefs, you need to understand that our beliefs becomes our reality, right? Our beliefs determines our actions. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Now let's understand that. Now, why I say that our beliefs becomes our reality, let me give you a very simple example, okay? And I have given this example in the last video as well. A random kid, okay? So what if we take a random kid and we force him to watch porn, right? And if, let's say, that kid doesn't even knows about porn and masturbation, right? It doesn't even knows if it's good or bad. It doesn't even knows the benefits. It doesn't even knows the negatives, right? It don't even have these beliefs from these porn industries that, oh, porn is so pleasurable, it gives a lot of pleasure, it gives a lot of dopamine, it relieves your stress, it relieves your anxiety, it can relieve your negative emotions, right? He doesn't have any of that beliefs, okay? And he even didn't have any beliefs about nofap, okay? Like, he doesn't even he's clear of all of those beliefs, okay? Now if we force that random kid, if we give him the phone, okay, if we put the screen in front of him, and if we put porn on it, okay, and we force him to watch it, do you think that kid would be like, oh my god, man, I'm feeling so good, it's give me a lot of pleasure, it gives me a lot of dopamine, it relieves my anxiety? And if, let's say, that kid, let's say his parents died, okay, right? And if, let's say, that random kid that we forced to watch porn, if, let's say, his parents died and he's feeling extremely stressed, he's feeling extremely anxious, he's feeling extremely depressed, okay, and so in that moment, if we force that kid to watch porn, right, if we show him the screen, do you think that kid would be like, oh my god, man, it gives me a lot of pleasure, dopamine, it relieves my anxiety, it relieves my stress, it relieves my depression, I'm feeling so much better, right? Thank you so much. Do you think that kid would be like that? No, right? Yeah, maybe he's gonna change his focus for the moment being, but he will not feel any pleasure, he will not even relieve his stress, he will not even feel the emotional relief, stress relief, none of that, right? Instead, that kid would be feeling the opposite, right? He might feel weird, he might feel disgusting, he might even become angry about it, and he can even throw the phone away, right? So you need to understand that. Why? Because that kid doesn't have these beliefs about nofap. He doesn't have all of these beliefs that, oh, porn is so pleasurable, porn relieves your stress, porn relieves your anxiety, and it doesn't even have any beliefs about nofap, right? And because he doesn't have those beliefs, so he fails to perceive so, right? It's really that simple. All right, so you need to understand that because stress is in your mind, stress is in simply the stressful thoughts, right? So we can only relieve it in our own mind, right? Because the only way to relieve your stress, the only way, because stress, think about it, stress is not physical, it's not objective, right? It's simply in your mind, it's simply the thoughts, stress, it's simply the stressful thoughts, because it's simply in your mind. So you can only relieve it by using your own mind, in your own mind, and not by anything else, right? Now I'm actually going to give you even more examples to make you convinced of it, right? And we are going to actually talk in detail how you are actually relieving your stress, okay, when you watch porn. And it's not that porn relieves your stress. Now I want to ask you this, okay? It's a very important question, okay? So tell me, how can porn relieve your stress, but at the same time it makes you even more stressed? Like, doesn't make any sense, right? Like when you are when you decide to watch porn, that's exactly when you feel the stress relief, right? When you relieve your stress, but at the same time you know that oh, if you will watch porn, it's gonna make you even more stressed afterwards, right? Makes you more stressed, right? So think about it, okay? Now how can porn relieve your stress, but at the same time it can make you even more stressed? Like, how can something something give two opposite reactions? How can something show two opposite reactions but at the same time? Like, think about it, it doesn't make any sense, right? How can porn relieve your stress but at the same time makes you even more stressed? You see, that means, right, you see what, where I'm actually getting at, right? So how can something show two opposite reaction but at the same time, right? So that means, all right, so that means if porn, that means there is something that is wrong here, right? So we're going to talk about it, what is actually happening, okay? Why you feel that stress relief in the moment being when you watch porn. We're going to talk more about it, okay? So all right, so you need to understand that because stress is in your own mind, okay? Stress is not physical. Stress relief comes from your own mind and not because of the porn, right? So all right, so think about it. Now many people also say that, oh, porn has some special chemical inside it, that chemically relieves our stress, that chemically relieves our negative emotion, that chemically relieves our anxiety. All right, now think about it. If porn had some special chemical inside it, if porn had some special chemical inside it that could relieve our negative emotion, that could relieve our stress, then think about it. Imagine if all right, so if porn had some special chemicals inside it that could chemically relieve our stress, that could chemically relieve our anxiety, then imagine, what if you are in the middle of watching porn? What if you're in the middle of that masturbating, you're in the middle of that session, and suddenly someone walks upon you, right? And if, let's say, is your family member, your mother, your father, whatever, don't you think that you would feel no stress, right? Like do you think that you wouldn't feel any stress because you're in the middle of the watching porn, and you're in the middle of that effect, right? You're in the middle of that effect, right? And because of those special chemicals because of those special chemicals of porn, you're not gonna feel any stress about it? No, right? Some people will feel extremely stressed out, they will feel extremely depressed, that they will quickly shut down their laptop, they will quickly shut down their phone, and they will focus on that stressful situation which is right in front of them, and so they're gonna feel stress about it, right? It's really that simple, okay? Think about it. Think about it, okay? uh, because you need to understand that stress relief comes from your own mind, and not because of the porn, not because of this lifeless video, okay? Not because of the pixels on the screen. Now the moment, now what is actually happening, okay? So the moment when you start thinking of the stressful situation, uh, which is right in front of you, you feel stress, okay? Now think about it. If porn would relieve your stress chemically, if porn would relieve your stress chemically because of the special chemicals inside it, then you wouldn't feel any stress even if someone walked upon you. If let's say you're in the middle of watching porn. Think about it, right? It's really that simple, okay? Like if porn would relieve your stress chemically because of dopamine and because of the pixels on the screen, then you wouldn't feel any stress even if someone walks upon you, if let's say you're in the middle of that session, right? You need to understand that. You need to start questioning your beliefs, okay? Now let's understand that what is now why you actually relieve your stress when you were watching porn before someone walks upon you, okay? So when you decided to watch porn, that's exactly when you started to feel the stress relief, okay? Because the thing is, let's first understand what is actually relieving our stress, okay? Like what actually relieves stress, what is actually happening, okay? Why we feel that small emotional relief, right? To understand this, what actually relieves stress, you need to first understand this flow chart, okay, that I made for you. Because once you understand this flow chart, you will understand what is actually happening there, okay? So what actually relieves your stress is not the porn, it's not the lifeless video in and of itself. This is what actually is happening there, okay? So when you feel stress, like it can be anything. When you interpret any situation that represents harm or loss, then you start feeling stressed about it. I mean, you start creating stressful thoughts about it, right? So when you feel stressed, what actually happens is, when you feel stressed, you decide to watch porn, right? Because you believe that porn can actually relieve your stress. So whenever you feel stress, the first option that comes inside your mind is to watch porn, right? So what happens when you feel stressed? You decide to watch porn, and when you watch porn, you feel the emotional relief, not because of the lifeless video, not because of porn in and of itself, but because of the reprieve, because of the distraction. So but and because you felt that emotional relief because of the distraction, because you distracted yourself from your own thoughts, from your own stressful thoughts, so you're not feeling stress. Because think about it, if you don't think about the stressful thoughts, you cannot feel stress, right? So what actually happens is, when you watch porn, you feel the emotional relief, not because of porn, not because of the screen, but because you distracted yourself from your own thoughts. You changed your focus from all those stressful thoughts, and you put all your focus onto the screen, onto watching porn, right? So you felt the emotional relief, because you're not feeling stress. You distracted yourself from your own thoughts due to the distraction, but you give the credit to porn, that porn did this, porn relieved your stress. Just like that, when you watch porn, you feel the emotional relief, not because of porn in and of itself, but because of the distraction. You distracted yourself, but you give the credit to porn. So when you do that, what actually happens is, this is what actually happened, okay? There's a false belief that is formed inside your mind, okay? So there's a false belief that is formed inside your mind, right? And what is that false belief? The false belief is that, oh, because I watched porn and I felt the emotional relief, right? So, and you give the credit to porn, that, oh, porn did this, porn is the genuine solution for the stress relief. So this is the false belief that is formed inside your mind, that porn is the best solution for the stress relief, that porn did this, porn relieved your stress. It's so this is the false belief that is formed inside your mind. And guess what? Because you have formed this belief, this flawed belief in your mind, that porn is the genuine solution for stress relief, because you did that yourself in your own mind. So what will happen, this cycle will keep on repeating over and over again, right? Whenever you will feel stress, because you believe, there's a false belief in your mind, you adopted this false belief that porn is the solution for stress relief. So whenever you will feel stress, every single time you will want to watch porn, right? The best solution for you to relieve your stress is to watch porn, right? And when you will watch porn, you will feel the emotional relief, not because of the screen, not because of porn in and of itself, but because of the distraction, right? You distracted yourself, right? So that is what actually is happening, okay? And once you understand this flowchart, you're going to understand what is actually happening, okay, and what actually relieves your stress. And the only purpose to make this flowchart for you is for you to understand that you can do this, you can do this with anything else, okay? You can relieve your stress, like you can do this by anything else, okay? Porn is not special at all. You distract yourself from your own thoughts, because remember, once you distract yourself from your own thoughts, and because stress is all in your mind, it's not physical, so when you distract yourself from your own thoughts, when you don't focus on those stressful thoughts, when you are not thinking about those stressful thoughts and you are focusing on something else, then of course you're not gonna feel any stress, right? And you can do this by anything else, okay? Like I can go for a walk and I can relieve my stress the same way when I watch porn, right? Because I'm not, when I go for a walk, when I decide to go for a walk, I'm not thinking about the stressful thoughts and I'm focusing on something else, right? It's really that simple, okay? And don't worry guys, I'm gonna give you even more examples to help you understand this. So you need to first understand that stress relief, it comes from your own mind when we watch porn. So you need to understand that it's not cause and effect, okay? Like it's not cause and effect. So there are two things that you need to understand, right? There are two things because of which we feel the stress relief, okay? And it's not the stress relief, we can say, right? So what are those two things? First is your decision, okay? And the second is a small reprieve or a small distraction, right? So there are two things that are actually happening, and because of which we feel the and you know this is what actually is happening, okay? So first is the decision, okay? Now what actually relieves stress? So when you decide to watch porn, when you decide to PMO, when you're like, oh, you know, screw it, let me go and watch porn. When you are like, screw it, let me go and watch porn. When you decide to PMO, when you decide to watch porn, when you are like, I don't want to use swear words, but screw it, let me go and watch porn. That's exactly when you feel the stress relief, okay? When you make a decision to PMO, when you make a decision to watch porn, that's when exactly you feel the stress relief, okay? When you're like, screw it, let me go and watch it, right? So what then actually happens is, when you watch porn, you give yourself a small distraction from your own thoughts. You distract yourself from your own thoughts, right? Because think about it, we just explained what is stress. Because stress is simply in your mind, right? It's you thinking about those stressful thoughts. It's simply your thoughts, right? So when you decide to watch porn, when you decide to PMO, when you're like, screw it, like when you are let's say you're feeling extremely stressed, right? Something bad happened and you are thinking about the stressful thoughts, right? So when you decide to PMO, when you decide to watch porn, when you're like, screw it, I won't think about I let me go and distract myself, let me go and watch porn, screw it, let me go and watch porn. That's exactly when you feel the stress relief, okay? So when you give yourself a small distraction, when you watch porn, you distract yourself from your own thoughts. Like you're not thinking about the stressful thoughts anymore, and instead you're focusing on something else, which is on the screen, right? Which is, you're focusing on watching porn. You're not focusing on your stressful thoughts anymore. And because you're not thinking about those stressful thoughts, so I mean, if you're not thinking about your stressful thoughts, then you won't feel any stress, right? You just distracted yourself from your own thoughts, right? This is what actually is happening, okay? This is what actually what is actually happening. Okay, so you need to understand that porn and masturbation is just not special. Okay, I mean, we can still do anything else. We can go for a walk, we can go to gym, we can go outside, we can, you know, talk with our friends, we can do anything else, and it's gonna still relieve our stress. Why? Because we distract ourselves, we give ourselves a small distraction from our own thoughts. We are not focusing on the stressful thoughts anymore, and instead we are focusing on something else, right? But again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the solution is to replace one habit with another, like stop watching porn and do something else. No, no, that is not what I'm saying. Okay, what I'm actually trying to tell you is that simply understand that porn has genuinely zero value. Okay, porn cannot actually relieve your stress. Okay, it's not porn that is relieving your stress, it's simply your own mind. Okay, like, why do you need to replace something that genuinely has zero value? Think about it. Okay, so the solution is not to replace one habit with another. Okay, simply understand that porn cannot actually relieve your stress, not by forcing but by understanding, right? So now let me explain you by using a flow chart that what is actually happening. Okay, because with the help of that flow chart you're going to understand even more about it, right? All right, so we just talked about porn, that porn cannot actually relieve your stress, because there are not special chemicals inside porn that can relieve your stress. It's simply a lifeless video. It's simply a screen, right? I mean, you can still, I mean, you if you do anything else, it's gonna still relieve your stress. I can write on this whiteboard and I'm gonna feel the stress relief, right? Because I'm not focusing on my stressful thoughts, and instead I'm focusing on this whiteboard, right? But you need to understand this whiteboard and that screen, it's the same thing. Okay, like, both are materials. So, like, for example, if I look at this whiteboard, am I gonna feel the stress relief? No, right? But if I'm not if I'm like thinking about this whiteboard, right, if I change my focus from all my stressful thoughts and instead I focus on this whiteboard, I start thinking about this whiteboard, that, oh, this whiteboard, it's going to help me to create a lot of videos, and, you know, and it's going to bring so much to my life. Now I'm going to feel the stress relief, not because of this lifeless material, but because of a small distraction, right? I distracted myself from my own thoughts, right? So it's really that simple. Porn is just not special. Okay, you can relieve your stress by anything. And again, the solution is not to replace your one habit with another. No, simply understand that porn cannot actually relieve your stress. Okay, now we just covered porn. Now let's talk about masturbation. Okay, because a lot of people argue that, all right, we understood that porn cannot relieve your stress, but what about what about masturbation? Because, I mean, when you are masturbating, you are actually it's like it's like a physical sensation, right? It's not something that is that you're not that has no physical contact. I mean, masturbation is a physical sensation, right? So can it actually relieve your stress because it's something physical, right? So let's cover this one. Okay, so you need to understand that masturbation cannot actually relieve your stress. Okay, because we covered in the last video that masturbation is simply a small physical sensation, right? It's simply it's just like I'm touching my arms, I'm touching my any other body part. It's just like that. Okay, what matters the most is your mental interpretation. Okay, so masturbation is a physical sensation, right? It's a physical sensation. Now when we masturbate, what actually, how it actually is actually relieving our stress. You need to understand that when you decide to masturbate, that's, when you're like, screw it, when you're feeling stress and you decide to masturbate, you're like, screw it, let me go and masturbate. That's exactly when you feel the stress relief. Okay, because you shift your focus from one thing to another thing. Okay, again, when you masturbate, right, when you feel that physical sensation, right, what actually happens is you distract yourself from your own thoughts, right? Like, you change your focus from all your stressful thoughts, right? You're not focusing on the stressful thoughts anymore, and instead you're focusing on that sensation of masturbation. You're focusing on that physical sensation, right? So if you you changed your focus, okay? So because you're not focusing on the stressful thoughts anymore, so you're not feeling any stress. You see what is actually happening? You need to understand that masturbation is just a physical sensation, okay? Like, it has no some special chemicals that objectively relieves our stress. No, what is actually happening is you're just giving yourself a small distraction. You're just distracting yourself from one thing into another thing, okay? It's really that simple, okay? And you need to understand that masturbation is just not special. I mean, you can do anything else and it's gonna still do the same, okay? It's gonna still relieve your stress, okay? Right? So masturbation is just not special. So, and let me give you an example, like why I say that masturbation cannot relieve your stress. Let me give you another example, okay? Because a lot of people think that, oh, masturbation is a physical sensation, that means it relieve our stress because it's a physical sensation. So let me give you an example to help you understand this, okay guys? So this is one another interesting example that I can give you. Cutting your arms, okay? So I've given this example in the last video as well, because once you understand this example, you're gonna understand that how masturbation cannot actually relieve your stress, okay? So do you know that in the western side of the world, in many western countries, even in Pakistan, like I don't know about Pakistan if it is actually happening here or not, but in most of the western countries, in the western side of the world, there are a lot of women who actually cut their own body parts, who cut their own arms to get rid of their stress, right? Like, cutting your arms, like, do you understand that cutting your arms, cutting your body parts is not objectively pleasurable? It is not something that can relieve your stress, right? Like, I don't believe that if I cut my arms, it's gonna relieve my stress. No, right? So what actually happens is those women literally cut their own body parts. They actually cut their own arms, and it gives them and for them it's so much pleasurable. For them it gives them a lot of stress relief. It relieves their stress, it relieves their anxiety. But I mean, think about it. Cutting your own body parts, cutting your own arms, like, it's not objectively pleasurable. It cannot objectively relieve your stress, right? So what is actually happening? Why they feel the stress relief? What is actually happening? So when they actually cut their arms, they change their focus. Again, what is actually happening, okay? They change their focus from all their stressful thoughts, and they put all their focus into that physical sensation, that physical sensation, okay? When they cut their arms, that painful sensation. So they change their focus from one thing into another thing, okay? And because they are not focusing on the stress, that's exactly what is actually happening, okay? But if you cut your own arms, if somebody else cut their body parts, do you think they're gonna feel the pleasure? They're gonna feel stress relief? They're gonna relieve their negative emotions? No, right? So you need to understand that because you perceive that activity to give you stress relief, so you're gonna feel that stress relief, not because of that act in and of itself, but because of your own beliefs, because of the placebo, okay? So you need to understand that, okay? Because you perceive porn to relieve your stress, so you feel the emotional relief, not because of that lifeless video in and of itself, but because of your own beliefs, because of placebo, okay? So again, let me give you another example, okay? So you need to understand that masturbation cannot relieve anything, okay? Because just like cutting your own arms, it's a physical sensation, right? But it cannot actually relieve your stress. Masturbation is just a small physical sensation. It cannot relieve anything. It cannot give you sexual relief. It cannot give you stress relief. It cannot give you emotional relief. It cannot do anything, okay? It cannot give you anything, okay? It has objectively zero value. That's important to understand, right? So it's just a physical sensation that we mentally interpret, okay? So Let me give you another example of and once you understand this example, you're gonna understand everything. Okay, so this is the example of a heroin user. Okay, now many people believe that, oh, porn has some special chemical like dopamine, and because it has some special chemical inside it that like dopamine, so it goes inside our mind when we watch it, and it blocks certain neural pathways, and because of that we feel stress relief, right? All right, so let me give you this example of a heroin user, so to actually debunk this belief as well. So, and actually and by the way, I took this example from a book, the Cult of Pharmacology, right? It's a very famous example, and once you understand this, you're gonna understand everything. Okay, so there was a guy who used to take a lot of heroin. Okay, who used to take a lot of heroin, and he was a heroin user. Okay, so once what happened is that guy had a craving to take heroin. Okay, a very strong craving to, because it's not like he had the craving from the outside, but he wanted to take the heroin because he was feeling extremely stressed, he was feeling extremely depressed, so he wanted to take the heroin to relieve his stress, because he thought that heroin can actually relieve his negative emotions, it can relieve his stress. Okay, now what happened is that guy was at his mom's house, right? And his mom didn't know that he used to take heroin. His mom didn't know anything about him, right? His mom didn't know that he used to take heroin, he was a heroin user. So that guy was at his mom's house, and he was feeling extremely stressed, he was feeling extremely bored, he was feeling extremely depressed. So he decided to take the heroin, right? He decided to take the heroin, and when he took that, he started feeling good, he started feeling all of those quote effects, he started feeling the stress relief, he started feeling he started feeling that relief, right? But what actually happened is that guy accidentally dropped a bag of heroin on the floor at his mom's house. Okay, so what happened is his mom saw that bag of heroin, and she quickly picked it up, and she was so mad, that she quickly walked upon like that guy. When he took that heroin, he was feeling so much stress relief, he was feeling so good, and he was sitting in his mom's couch, right? And so his mom saw the bag of heroin on the floor, she picked it up, and she quickly walked upon him, right? And when she walked upon him, she was so mad at him, like she was holding that bag of heroin, and she was so mad at him that she quickly started screaming. She literally started screaming when she was holding the bag of heroin, right? And she quickly walked upon him, right? So what do you think, what is the next thing that guy was feeling? Like, do you think that guy was not feeling any stress because her mom walked upon him, and he has took that heroin, and heroin is like this drug that can relieve your stress, that can relieve your negative emotion, and it cannot feel you, and it cannot make you feel any stress? Like, do you think that guy wouldn't be feeling stressed, anxious, and depressed because his mom walked upon him, and she's so mad at him, she started screaming at him? No, that guy literally started feeling extremely stressed, he started feeling extremely depressed, even though he was in the middle of that drug effect, right? Even though he took the heroin, right? Even though he was in the middle of that quote drug effect, right? So do you think that guy, because he took the heroin, and he's not gonna feel any stress, because he's not gonna feel any stress, and he's gonna be like, oh, I'm not gonna feel any stress, even if my mom walked upon me, I'm not gonna feel any stress because I've took heroin, and heroin is like this drug that cannot make me feel stress? No, right? Even though that guy is in the middle of that quote drug effect, he has took that drug, right? But still he's feeling extremely stressed, he's feeling extremely depressed, right? And he was so stressed, he was so anxious about it, that he quickly went in his car, and he stayed in his car for a whole 1 week, right? And for the whole week he didn't talk to his family members, he was so stressed out, right? So you need to understand that it's not the drug It's not the material, it's not the substance in and of itself that can relieve your stress, but it's simply your own mind. Okay, you see what is actually happening, right? So you need to understand that stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, boredom, all of these negative emotions, they are not objective, right? All of these negative emotions, they are in your mind. It's simply your thoughts, right? And because it's simply the thoughts, so you can only relieve it in your own mind, right? Like you can still do anything else and it's going to still relieve all of these negative emotions. Why? Because you're not thinking about those thoughts anymore. You changed your focus from all these stressful thoughts, all of these anxious thoughts, depressive thoughts, lonely thoughts, boredom thoughts, and you put all your focus onto something else. It's really that simple. Okay, so because that guy took that heroin, so he was not focusing on his stressful thoughts anymore, and instead he was focusing on that physical sensation of that drug, right? So he started feeling the stress relief, not because of the drug in and of itself, but he was doing it in his own mind, right? He was just distracting himself from his own thoughts. But as soon as his mom walked upon him, now he was not focusing on that physical sensation of the drug, and instead he was focusing on that stressful situation which was right in front of him, right? So he started feeling stressed. It's really that simple. Okay, so you need to understand that stress relief comes from your own mind, right? All right, so what is actually the problem? Okay, now the problem, what is the real problem here? Okay, the real problem. Okay, now what is the real problem here? Now another real problem is that many people nowadays who are being brainwashed by this modern day movement that, oh, when you feel the stress, when you feel any negative emotion, you need to start coping with it, you need to cope with it. Okay, you need to always want to feel good. Okay, that's a real problem. Okay, we have been brainwashed by this modern day movement that by the nofap and by all of these nofap communities that, oh, whenever you feel stress, whenever you feel depressed, whenever you feel negative emotions, oh, that's the issue. Okay, you need to quickly cope up with it, because if you won't cope up with it, then you will want to watch porn. No, right? That's the real problem. Okay, what you have to do is, the thing is, you have to start perceiving stress to be beneficial. Okay, you have to start perceiving stress to be beneficial, and it's really important. Okay, because when you start perceiving stress, when you start sorry for my marker, when you start perceiving stress as something that's beneficial, then you won't even feel like you want to watch porn whenever you feel stress, right? And if you don't perceive stress as this negative strong trigger, okay, when you don't perceive stress like this, and instead you start viewing stress and all of these negative emotions as something beneficial, then you won't even feel like you want to watch porn whenever you feel stressed, right? Because the thing is, like in the past when I used to watch porn, like I was in this I used to watch porn, I used to perceive stress as a trigger, right? So when I used to perceive stress as a trigger, right, I always thought that I need to cope up with it every single time. Okay, so I used to keep myself busy, I used to do something else, I used to go for a walk, I used to watch porn, I used to do something else in order to get rid of that stress. Okay, that was the biggest problem, that was the real problem. Okay, and because of that, I it really became so difficult for me. Okay, but once I actually debunked this belief, once I started viewing stress as a beneficial thing instead of a trigger, instead of a negative thing, I started perceiving stress to be beneficial for me. Believe me, it changed my life completely, okay? Right? I started perceiving stress as something beneficial, okay? Right? It's because I thought that, oh, it's gonna make me more stronger, right? It's gonna I can I can use it to my own advantage. I can use it as my motivation to work even more harder. I can use it as my motivation to to push myself even harder, to to work harder, so I can uh, solve that problem and feel no stress about it. It's really that simple, okay? I changed my perception around stress, okay? I started perceiving stress to be beneficial, right? Right. So what actually happened is, once I started doing this, believe me, I didn't even feel like I want to watch porn whenever I would feel stress, okay? Because I literally like, it changed my life completely, okay? Because whenever I would feel stress, whenever I would feel depressed, whenever I would feel bored, whenever I would feel any negative emotions, I would just become grateful to God, okay? Like, I would just become grateful, and I use it to my own advantage. I use it as my motivation to work even harder, to push myself even harder, okay? And to push myself to face that stress, okay? Because when you face your stress, when you face your fears, what actually happens, it not only it just goes away, but also it's really like, it's so much powerful. I mean, like, you don't need to cope up with it whenever you feel stress. You don't need to be like, oh my god, man, I need to do something, I need to do something else, I need to do this, I need to do that. No. Right? Once you start perceiving stress to be beneficial, so you can use it to your own advantage, you can use it as your motivation, right? To to work even more harder, believe me, it's gonna change your life. You're not gonna feel like you even want to watch porn anymore, okay? So it's really important to do that. All right, so let me give you another example, okay? That why stress is not uh, why stress is not objectively real, okay? Because think about it, life is all about ups and downs, okay? Life is all about ups and downs, right? And it is in our religion as well, that you cannot feel happy at all times, okay? You cannot be 10 out of 10 at every single time, right? Life is all about ups and downs, right? So you don't need to have this coping mechanism mentality. No, you need to change your perception around stress, okay? You need to start perceiving stress as beneficial, so you can actually use it to your own advantage, okay? And believe me, once you do that, it's going to change your life completely. So let me give you another interesting example to make you understand that why stress is actually not objectively real, and what is the real problem actually, okay? So antidepressants and Japan. So this is the story of Japan and antidepressants, okay? Now, do you know that in 1990, in 1990, Japan didn't have any form of depression, okay? They literally didn't have any form of depression. I mean, and even if they had it, they had it in extremely severe cases, okay? Like, in Pakistan, in many Western countries, people are like, oh, this guy is probably mentally ill, right? So it was like that, okay? So people didn't have any form of depression. They didn't even believe that they were depressed, right? And even if they felt down, they just saw it as ups and downs of life, okay? They didn't saw it as some kind of mental illness or mental disorder, okay? They just saw it as, oh, it's just a normal part of life. Like, it's I mean, it's life, okay? Life is all about ups and downs, right? Now, business wise, if we take a look, business wise, they wanted to sell the antidepressants in Japan, but because the people of Japan didn't even believe they have some mental illness called depression, so they didn't even need antidepressants at all, okay? Right? So because Japan didn't have any form of depression, they didn't even believe that they were depressed, so they wanted to create the need for it, so they can actually sell their product, they can sell their antidepressants to Japan, okay? So what happened is, they did this marketing all over the Japan to create the need for the antidepressants. So in their marketing, what they actually did was shocking. Okay, they used the concept of lows and highs of life. So in order to sell their antidepressants in Japan, they used this concept of lows and highs of life to, and they did marketing all over Japan saying that, oh, if you feel the lows in life, that's a symptom, that's a symptom called depression. Oh, if you feel this, that's a symptom called depression. If you feel that, that's a symptom that you have depression. Oh, if you feel down, and if you feel like, and if you feel angry, even though, and if you feel angry at someone even though you don't want to, oh, that's a symptom called depression. So they did all of, so they did this marketing all over Japan, and they, by using the concept of lows and highs of life, right? So what actually happened is, the thing is, guess what, the people of Japan didn't even believe that they were depressed. They didn't even believe that they have some mental illness called depression. So they wanted to create the need for it. Now after they had done all of this marketing, what actually happened is, after a few weeks of marketing, after a few weeks of this marketing, Japan became one of the most popular country when it comes to antidepressants use. like like it's literally, you see, it's so much shocking that Japan became one of the most popular country when it comes to antidepressants use, right? People of Japan, they actually started feeling depressed even though they were not. They literally started believing that they had some mental illness called depression, right? Even though that wasn't true. Okay, even though the people of Japan didn't have any form of mental illness called depression. Okay, like depression was not something that was objectively real. Okay, I mean, it was just like, I mean, before all of this agenda, right? People of Japan, whenever they would feel lows of life, whenever they would feel down, they didn't saw it as some kind of mental illness called depression. They just saw it as uh, they just saw it as life. Okay, I mean, like, oh, if I have lows of life, if I feel down, if I have lows of life, if I have ups and downs, that's life. Okay, I mean, it's a part of life. Life is all about ups and downs. Okay, right? They didn't saw it as some kind of mental illness called depression. But because they wanted to sell the antidepressants in Japan, so they wanted to create the need for it, so they did all of this marketing, right? And they fed this belief in people's mind, right, that they have some mental illness called depression, right? So people of Japan started believing in this mainstream belief, right? And because they started believing in this mainstream belief, and remember, our beliefs becomes our reality. Okay, because they started believing in this mainstream belief, so it became their reality. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So you need to understand that depression, stress, anxiety, all of these negative emotions, it's simply your thoughts. Okay, it's not objectively real. Okay, I mean, you can change your perception around these things. You can start perceiving stress, anxiety, depression as something beneficial rather than a strong trigger, whatever, and it can change your life a lot. Okay, I mean, you don't even feel like you want to watch porn whenever you feel stress once you do that. Okay, and also make sure to debunk all of this this belief as well, that porn relieves your stress. We have already debunked that, right? So guys, if this video helped you, right, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and share this video as much as possible so we can make more people free from this. Okay, and if you guys want to make this process even more easier, if you guys want to debunk each and every single benefit that you see in porn and masturbation unconsciously, and really remove that desire completely, click the first link in the description down below of the free masterclass. And take care for now. Assalamu alaikum.